acting like your own executive assistant. So I came up with this in the context of me coming back from a trip I was driving, and yeah, I live streamed part of that trip back home. And while live streaming, I came up with this concept, I guess. So the context is that essentially I was like satisfied more or less with the impromptu choices I had made during like both the trip going there and coming back home. Well, not the coming back home, not yet, because I hadn't done the choices, but I was thinking of the choices I had made, like coming from home there to that place, which is basically I used Google Assistant. Well, not Google Assistant, like the Google Maps has a function that looks up places in your route. So while driving, I was looking stuff up on my phone. Yep, illegal, but okay, but oh well. The roads were empty and all that, so yeah. So essentially, yeah, I compared a couple of restaurants that Google suggested, looked at the reviews, and then picked a choice like right there, impromptu while driving, right? So it wasn't bad in context, and I got some kind of scratch, some kind of itch, which was like eating this cheap Chinese food that's called wok. And yeah, I got my fix out of that, and yeah, I wanted to, but yeah, it's like in a bigger picture context, I probably could have planned stuff better. For example, because I ended up like arriving kind of late to the place where I went to, and yeah, I could have used some more time there. I could have gotten there earlier. I could have researched, for example, instead of picking a place randomly when I was hungry, which I had more or less luck, and it was close to a big city, so in Zaragoza, which is like a relatively big city in between Barcelona and Madrid, which was the trip I was making. So yeah, I had luck there, but I could have not had the luck. So I could have planned it better to not rely on luck and to be able to be like, oh, actually, there is this really nice place like towards the end, the latter leg of the trip. So I could have like planned a different restaurant that was more to my taste, or even like even better, or like cheaper, or whatever, or with better reviews, and closer to my destination. So I could have like killed two birds with a stone, for example, right? I could have gotten my fix, plus I could have arrived earlier and gotten like more time with my friends there, right? And yeah, essentially that's the context I came up with, and this thing I came up with, which is essentially acting like your executive assistant. So for example, yeah, you could call that just plan your stuff better, I guess. But I don't know, I liked this executive assistant framing because I was like thinking of it as in a more elevated way, right? So the example I made like in this live stream, it is in Spanish, so you don't need to watch it. Like the first half is in Spanish and the latter half is in English, but the latter half doesn't like have anything to do with this, so it's not related. But yeah, essentially the thing I came up with was basically, if you get paid a lot of money by someone rich to do something, like you take care of the details, and like you take care of like the things that are like they bring the most amount of friction. So for example, in this trip, the thing I cared about was parking, right? For example, I really get anxious about parking. So if you're rich, you get driven on places. So I guess that's less of a concern. But maybe if you are rich and it's raining, you still want to park. You still want the place to have parking, right? Or maybe you don't want to like deal with waiting for your driver or whatever, so you do still want a place with a valet or something like that, right? So if you're an executive assistant, you would do that like upscale version of that, which is essentially like calling up some places and directly asking, hey, do you have like parking spots with valets or whatever? Or you would call like these nice restaurants. So you would plan the trip accordingly. So for example, you would choose like the best restaurant in Zaragoza, for example, or something like that, right? Or like a good restaurant with parking in Zaragoza, and those are like the constraints. And the executive assistant, what does is like this planning carefully, and this taking care of the details and the friction the friction points and all that, right? So I wanted to like do that for myself, right? Essentially, like take care of the friction points that I know worry me and do that rather than just like plan just plan in a basic way, like when you plan a trip. For example, when I've gone with my friends to places, like we plan, for example, what to do there, but yeah, it's not like this detailed executive, like what it's not what I would expect from an executive assistant, right? It's like just some planning to have some general idea, and then since you're young and traveling, like you adapt. But what I want is like this executive assistant type vibe of really nailing the friction points and the things that I know worry me because I'm myself, so I know what worries me, right? Or in this case, like this rich person who's paying you a lot of money to like do that, right? And I wanted to like have that vibe and to take care of it like that. Then another example of this that I thought of, and that's the reason, this is the reason why I'm making the video, because the other part I was just going to like leave that live stream up, which I've already done. So yeah, but yeah, I thought of it again. So I thought, this actually makes sense, and maybe it's worth making like a standalone video for it. And this other example was like in the context, for example, of buying clothes for someone, right? Like being like this personal shopper, I guess it's called, or something like that, right? So if I got paid to buy clothes for someone or something like this, if I was someone's personal shopper, like I would buy clothes differently, right? So I would just go one day by myself without my client to every like place where they want me to buy clothes. For example, if I want, if they're rich and they want to buy clothes, I would go to like Calle Serrano, which is like an important street in Madrid, and I would just go looking and like take with a pencil and all that, and with a phone, and take notes and all this of all the things I see that I like, right? And like check the reference numbers and maybe take pictures if they let me. And like I wouldn't give a shit if they don't like, if they don't approve of my conduct or whatever. If I get side-eyed for like taking a picture in a shop and not buying anything, I wouldn't give a shit, right? It's like if I get side-eyed by you, I would like relay that information to my client, or I won't give a shit. Like I will take the damage for like, because I'm getting paid for that, right? I'm getting paid to get clothes for this person, so the most important thing is like to get the right clothes. So like this getting side-eyed by people, or like doing things that you're not supposed to do, because you're not supposed to take pictures of clothing inside the store, or you're not supposed to browse X or Y departments if you're not buying or whatever, right? So I wouldn't give a shit, and I would just like go do that and gather the information that I want, and then I would go with my client again to only the places that I've decided that we want to go to, because they have like the things that I want him to or her to try out, and to figure out like sizing or whatever, because maybe they don't have the sizing that we want there. Like maybe I would ask, but maybe they don't have it again, or maybe they have, for example, the size L, but since sizes vary, so maybe the L size doesn't work for the client, and they would need a smaller or a bigger one, that kind of stuff, right? That I can't just buy it and get it. That the fit is an important part of the process, so it requires the client now, and I would go again, but to the specific places with the specific garments that I want. So I would pick this thing and this thing and this thing and get it to the client and all that, right? So I would be willing to do like all that extra effort of like going once just to look and to like get a vibe and to like, I guess, look for specific pieces or whatever. And then I would go again just to figure out the fit and all that. And that's something that, for example, I've never done for my own clothing ever, right? But I've thought, like, why not? Like, I could do that, right? And I don't do it because I'm not getting paid by someone else to do it, right? So, like, I would have to figure out something. Yeah, essentially. So the things that I said wouldn't worry me do worry me. So, for example, I would mind getting side-eyed in my real life, right? If I'm buying clothes for myself, I do mind, and I don't like getting side-eyed. So I would feel weird, like going to a store or whatever, and just getting a vibe for the clothes or whatever. I would feel weird doing that, right? For example. So I wouldn't do that. So I wanted to make like kind of this video because I do think that there is some kind of parallel, right? I could like, I don't know, like delude myself or something like this into believing that there is a parallel with what I'm trying to do. Like if I'm being my own executive assistant and like treating myself as paying myself a very high amount, it's because like there is this kind of belief that I do have of what future me like being worth so much that it's like I'm paying myself in the future, like future me is going to pay me this kind of high amount of executive assistant type salary, right? Like by taking care of myself in that way, I'm going to like get this benefit. So this is kind of like the mindset or the parallel between like getting paid right now a high salary or like essentially investing into my future or something like this, right? Which is going to have good returns. And I wanted to make this video because I actually am not feeling like this at all, right? I'm not feeling like I have any kind of future, and I'm, essentially when I make light of being unemployed on my Twitter and all this, it's because I do believe that even though I'm unemployed right now, I'm in the right path, and and that there is a future, like what I say in my "We Are So Early" video, that kind of sentiment. It's because when I make light of it and I feel good and I don't mind making jokes about me being unemployed, it's because there is this underlying feeling of me believing in that, and of me like wanting to not minding the looking like a loser or something like that, because I do believe that that I'm onto something, right? But that's only when I'm feeling optimistic. When I'm and today I wasn't feeling optimistic. Like when I came up with this idea, when I was walking, I was actually I cried a little bit, not a little bit. I cried like up there in the mountains. I cried a little bit, and I was essentially sad about all this, and I didn't believe in myself. And I didn't want to watch myself, even though I actually did watch myself a little bit, watching like before making this video, like watching this live stream. But essentially, I wasn't feeling like really well at all, and I didn't want to hear myself saying this kind of "we're so early" type shit because I didn't believe in it. So I don't know. I kind of made this video to I don't know, to feel better about myself, and to capture this, I guess, to capture the fact that sometimes I make light of being unemployed, and I don't mind making jokes about it because I do believe in those moments. I believe that that I have a future and that it's going to give me great returns staying in this illegible path or whatever. But there are also a lot of moments where that doesn't happen, right? Like, for example, right now, where I just feel like shit and I don't feel like I'm going to amount to anything, and and that I don't believe in what I say at all, and I don't even want to watch these videos. So my only recourse is to essentially just say this, right? And I don't like to cry on camera, so I won't cry on camera. But essentially, that I could have made this video essentially crying. And that's what I wanted to say for this video. Acting like your own executive assistant, and then I guess some related rant after that. So this is a video of my 100 video series.